Hi, this is Ken. Not ready to start up Scicoga chat fully again, but I decided to put up a little video content because there's some stuff I've been thinking about, and obviously this isn't the same quality as what we usually do, so just bear with me. But I wanted to talk about game mastering. For those of you who are not pen and paper gamers, game mastering is what is done by what is, in all honesty, the most important member of a gaming group. This is the guy who's responsible, or guy or girl, excuse me. This is the person who's responsible for making sure there's a game to play, making sure that the players have goals, opposition, obstacles, rewards, everything. They literally control everything in the game that is not directly controlled by the players. And this person has a lot of responsibility on them. A good game master can make a game, a bad one can destroy a group. And I want to talk about some classic mistakes that I've seen a lot of DMs and GMs make. Now, I have to point out that I'm an old gamer. I've been playing various games for well over 30 years. I've played at least 5 different incarnations of Dungeons and Dragons. I've played Pathfinder. I've played 3 different superhero role-playing games. I've played GURPS. I've got a lot of different RPGs under my belt. So I think I'm fairly well qualified to discuss what what we're talking about. These are my opinions. If you don't agree with me, post down in the comments below. Lord knows I'm not perfect. I'm never going to claim to be. Now, all that being said, one of the first things that a DM does wrong, and I'll flat out say this is wrong, is not paying attention to your players. Okay? This comes in many forms. There was a group that I was involved in at one point in time that I was literally playing on my phone during combat, waiting for my turn to come around, and then I would just say, "What? Okay. What's going on? All right, I do this." And then I go back to my game. And it's not that I'm that easily bored. I really get into role-playing games. The problem is, the GM at the time was inexperienced, and he was biting off more than what he could chew. And he let another player roughshod over him, and because of that, this one player was hugely overpowered. And so the DM was making everything to oppose that player, so all the rest of us became obsolete. And since my character could not contribute to combat in any meaningful way, combat became extremely boring for me. Now, what made this even worse was the fact that this player, this DM, I should say, didn't want us to spend time role-playing. And to me, if you're playing a role-playing game, role-playing should be a focus, not an inconvenience. Another way this GM in particular failed to pay attention to his players was the fact that we talked about all this RP stuff, role-playing stuff that we wanted to do. He gave us one game session to do it all. That was it. Then we had to go right back to campaigning. And that one game session was supposed to cover months of time. So we didn't get to spend any time doing the things we were looking forward to doing because that wasn't what the DM wanted. Yes, what the DM wants should matter. And I'm not going to say it doesn't. But if you've got a half dozen players and they're all wanting to do something, and you say, no, we're going to do this instead, you have just shot yourself in the foot. Because the role of a GM or DM or whatever you want to call the storyteller, that person's job is to keep the game going, is to make the game fun. And we were bored. You know, I'm sorry if I'm playing on my phone during combat, of all things. You know, it'd be one thing if I was checking Facebook while another player was having an involved conversation. You know, as long as I'm still paying attention. If I'm present. If I wasn't even present, then there's no need for me to even pay attention at that point in time, because my character's not there, so why would I be there? But this was during combat. And if somebody's playing on their phone during combat and you're GMing, something's wrong somewhere. Either that player is not invested in the game, or they're bored. And if they're not invested in the game, you need to find out why. I actually had one dungeon master literally say that we were wasting time while we were role-playing. We were role-playing in a role-playing game, and that was wasting time. Yeah, just think about that one for a minute. I still have yet to make any sense of that. Now, another thing that a lot of DMs do wrong, a lot of GMs, I'm just going to say storytellers just because it applies to everything. One thing a lot of storytellers get wrong is they try to do too much too soon. You see this a lot with inexperienced storytellers. They want to tell an epic story right out of the gate. Or they want to combine game systems. And I'm not even exaggerating. I've seen these things happen. You know, and there's an old expression, keep it simple, stupid, KISS, KISS. And if you've never DM'd, GM'd, helmed an RPG before, if you've never acted in the role of a storyteller, don't, and I cannot emphasize this enough, don't make it harder on yourself. You know, that's like your first day of driving lessons and you're trying to compete on NASCAR. You know, if your first day behind the wheel of a car, you're racing against professionals, you're going to do badly. The same thing is true if your first time as a storyteller, you're trying to tell an epic story on the level of the Fellowship, the Lord of the Rings, or bigger. I've seen bigger. You're trying to do that right out of the gate as a storyteller. You're probably biting off more than you can chew. If you're trying to combine rules from alternate things, you are setting yourself up for failure. Okay? Do not heap more on yourself than you need to. I've been DMing for decades, literally. And I am very hesitant to combine systems. I might adapt something from a system, but I sure as heck am not going to do a large-scale combination of systems. And you know, I've got a story going on. I've got a game going on currently. That story is not epic. It has the potential to become so, but it is not epic yet. I could deal with an epic tale, but it's not necessary. And this is something else that I've seen a DM do, that is make the assumption that just because a player is very experienced means they can't enjoy a simple story. Um, really? I love Shakespeare. I love to read Shakespeare. It's one of my, I love it a lot. Does that mean I can't enjoy comic books? No. I love the MCU. I'm thrilled that it's become the monster at the box office that it has. But does this mean that I'm incapable of enjoying Hamlet or Macbeth? No. Macbeth is my favorite Shakespearean play. I know I'm weird. Everybody else is all Hamlet or Romeo and Juliet. But Macbeth is my fave. But that does not mean that I can't enjoy watching Ant-Man. That's an awesome film. I loved it. Just because somebody has a lot of experience does not mean you have to set the stage for grandiose adventure just to engage them. As a matter of fact, I know a lot of people who've been playing for a long time that after a while they want to do something simple again. They want to have just a simple fighter going through regular campaigns again, just because things get so weird and complicated when you get into the uber high level stuff. Another thing that I'm guilty of on occasion. I try not to do it, but sometimes scheduling gets the better of me. And as most of us realize, storytellers have to spend a lot more of their off time working on the game than players do. And that is being unprepared for a game. This one, it's going to happen on occasion. There are ways to contend with this. One thing you can do is you can have some things pre-generated, so that way when something happens, you just pull out a paper and you act like you had this all set to go from the very beginning. This is a very useful thing to do. I actually, at one point in time, had several different challenge ratings of encounters set up. I had 20 of each challenge rating, and I would choose whatever challenge rating I needed to use, and I would roll a d20 and pull out whatever the encounter was that I did. This gave me the ability to be prepared and improvise simultaneously. Sometimes I'd go through them and, because it'd be like, okay, that one's not really appropriate for this setting or for this location. So I'd, pull up something different. But for the most part, it was a great way to set up things and keep things going. Another good idea is for a DM or a storyteller to have a list of names. Just a list of names sitting by, standing in your notebook or whatever. That it's like, what's the innkeeper's name? Oh, his name is such and such. Oh, her name is this, and then just scratch off or circle the names or put a note next to it, whatever you have to do. But that way, you've got a record of the names you're coming up with, but you're not having to pull them out of thin air. Because, let's face it, that can be annoying. Let's see, what's other mistakes that GMs make? One thing that you can do that can make things a real pain, and this is something that it can be a game killer, and that is don't make your players primary characters. If your players feel like they're just in the game, they're just hanging on for the ride, that what they do is not of importance in the game, what's to keep them playing? If what they do doesn't matter, then what does, if what you did in a game didn't matter, would you want to keep playing? That's the big problem. And okay, let's be real. Nobody wants their character to die. Okay? But it must always be possible for a character to die. And I'm not saying you got to kill them off on or anything like that, but after a while, you can't keep saving a character's life. Give them a couple of passes once in a while, maybe, but don't ever make it obvious that your characters can't die. Had a couple of DMs who would do that, and they basically took the thrill of survival out of the game, because it's like playing a video game in God mode. Yeah, you'll beat it, but so what? It's the big fat hairy deal. So, you went through it being unable to die, and you survived all the way to the end. Big deal. If you can't die, there's no thrill of success in not dying. As a matter of fact, I actually recommend every once in a while kill off a player's character. Let them create a new character at the same character level, work it in, find an organic way to work it in, not just a forced fit, but remind people that a character can die. And I guarantee you that the disappointment of the one character being killed off is going to be grossly outweighed by the thrill that your players are going to experience in surviving things by the skin of their teeth. There's something truly awesome about being able to eke your way past a battle, just barely coming out of it and winning this epic level fight, when and you coming out of it beaten and bruised and exhausted, but by gods, you won. That is a fantastic feeling, and you can't have it if your characters can't die. There's no sense of accomplishment at all if the characters can't die. You take away that thrill for them. Now obviously you don't want to be doing total party kills either, because wiping the party sucks. But that's a handful of things that I've seen that DMs and GMs and storytellers, mistakes that they've made. As I've pointed out, I've made at least some of those mistakes myself. Ultimately, here are your guidelines. You want your players invested in the game. If they're spending more time playing the game than they are on their smartphones, you're doing something right. If they're on their smartphones during combat, unless they're like looking up spells and things of that for their characters to use in the game, that's fine, because I have apps on my smartphone that I use while I'm gaming. Some of them have lists of spells and things of that nature. But keep an eye on your players. If your players look bored, find out if they are. If they are, find out why. Fix it. Don't let it just die because you're being stubborn. The goal is to let the players guide the story. You guide it as much as you can. But what the primary characters do, think of it this way. You're writing a novel, but the primary characters are self-determining. And so you're going with this one where I was talking about players not feeling like their stuff matters. The story is going forward. The player characters, their stuff is off on the side. And sometimes this is going to happen. Try not to have too many scenes that your players have no control over. This is not a video game. Cinematic cutscenes are not fun to watch verbally. If you have a big thing between a couple of players and there's an alternate outcome, sure. But if it's just when the DM is having too many conversations with himself, you lose a lot of the gameplay. Try to give your players as much control as possible, and for the sake of everyone's sanity, never tell your players what they think, feel, or do. Okay? Players have their own minds. Players want to do what they want to do. If you say, oh no, you wouldn't do that, are you sure? Now, if you have somebody who's inexperienced as a player and they're doing something that's against alignment or against the way they've been playing the character thus far, then it's suitable to question whether they would actually do that. But to absolutely declare it is never a good idea. But there you go. We're hoping to bring back Scicoga Chat as a regular thing in the next few months. We have a GoFundMe campaign that we're trying to get going so we can get into an even better place. We're going to be moving into a new place in a few months. We just don't know where yet. And the GoFundMe campaign is to help us find the best option possible. If we get the kind of option we want, we're going to be able to set up a little studio space in the back and be able to resume Scicoga Chat. Hope that somebody out there at least is happy to hear that. But regardless, Ultimate Realities is still alive and well. We've been off of YouTube for over a year because of circumstances beyond our control. But we do still exist. Follow our Facebook. That's facebook.com/ultimaterealities. Couldn't be simpler. And, just come online and hang out with, come check out some of the stuff we do, make suggestions, and, we'll see what we can come up with for the future. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.